So in this lesson we're going to have a look at how we can add and subtract fractions with mixed numbers. That will be our focus, that's your learning intention, is to learn how to add and subtract fractions when mixed numbers are involved. We will be using your knowledge of how to change between mixed numbers and improper fractions, and also your knowledge of your times tables for finding lowest common multiples of denominators and consequently equivalent fractions that then allow you to do the adding and subtracting fraction process. Using your thinking skills, we need you to be using organisational skills, so when I ask you to copy out the examples and follow the layout that I'm putting on the board, that's how your working needs to look as well. So it's about being organised with this. The communication skills we speak about, when you're doing little problem solving questions, you will make use of the communication skill. So a quick recap on adding and subtracting fractions. Remember that you can only add or subtract fractions which have the same denominator. If you've got different denominators, then you need to be able to find an equivalent fraction which has got the same denominators. So in order to do that, this is where you make use of this finding lowest common multiple, and that's the first number that's in both times tables of the denominators. And remember, when you change your denominator in a fraction, you also need to change the numerator. So these examples here are the ones I would like you to copy into your jotter. Now this first example is an example of one where it is possible to just add the whole numbers and add the fractions. The fractions are both in the same terms, they're both in fifths. And you could just say here, well, I've got 3 whole pieces and 1 whole piece, so add the whole numbers and say, well, that makes 4. And you've got 1/5 plus 2/5, which altogether means I would have 3/5. Right, imagine you had, if you think about it in terms of pizzas or cakes or whatever, so like you had 3 whole pizzas and 1/5 left over, and someone else had 1 whole pizza and 2/5 left over. Between you, you've got 4 whole pizzas and 3/5. So you could just do that. However, in the second example, it doesn't work like that. If you were to deal with the whole numbers separately, you'd end up doing 4 take away 1, you'd get 3, but then you'd be going with your fractions, 1/6 take away 5/6, and you can't do that. So this is where we use your previous knowledge of understanding that a mixed number can also be written in top-heavy form. So that's known as an improper fraction. And the process to do that, you take your whole number, multiply by the denominator and add on the top number. So 4 times 6 is 24, add on the 1 gives us 25 over 6. And with the other one, you get 1 times 6 is 6, add on 5 makes 11. So what you've done is you've replaced 4 and 1/6 by 25 over 6, and you've replaced 1 and 5/6 by 11 over 6. Now that the fractions have both got the same denominators, you can now just subtract and do 25 take away 11 is 14 over 6. As with all of these, we need you to know to make your fractions as simple as possible. So we'll be looking for what can we divide into the top and the bottom. And here we can divide by 2. That allows us to write down that our fraction would become 7 over 3. That is still a top-heavy fraction, so I'd be looking for you to change that into a mixed number. And the way to do that is you do the 3 goes into 7, 2 times, remainder 1. That tells you how many whole pieces you can make. So you can make 2 whole pieces and you've got 1 bit of your third left over. So 2 and 1/3. So what you've learnt from this example here is that to be able to add or subtract when you've got mixed numbers, you really need to change them into top-heavy fractions. So that is key with the next few examples that we look at. Right, to add and subtract mixed numbers, you must change your mixed numbers into top-heavy fractions first. Once you've done that, it's then the same process as you've met before. So here, that would become 2 times 6 is 12, add on the 5 would make you have 17 sixths. You've got 1 times 3 is 3, add on 2 would be 5 thirds. Now this time, the fraction, the bottom numbers are different and we need them to be the same before we can add. So we need the lowest common multiple of 3 and 6, which of course is 6. Right, first number that's in both times tables. So that tells you that you need both fractions to be 6. Well, that first one is already 6, so we don't need to do anything with that. However, this next one, to change the 3 into 6, you are multiplying by 2. That means that you also need to change the top term by multiplying by 2. So you will end up here with 10 over 6. Once you've got to that point, you're then able to add the two things together, so you get 27 over 6. You need to make that simpler. What can you divide into 27 and 6? You can divide, both of those are in the 3 times table, so you should divide by 3. So that would give you 9 over 2, and that's still a top-heavy fraction, so 2 goes into 9, 4 times, remainder 1. That tells you you're going to have, your answer would be 4 1/2. So in that example, we only had to change one of the fractions. In this next one, you'll see that we will need to change both fractions. So still begin the same way. We need to get them into their top-heavy form. 4 times 3 is 12 and 1, 13 over 3. 1 times 5 is 5, add on 3 gives you 8 over 5. You're then looking for what is the lowest common multiple of 3 and 5. So it's the first number that's in the 3 and 5 times table, and that is 15. So that tells you that you need your bottom numbers for both fractions. So here we, like I said, we're having to change both fractions into 15. Now, to change 3 into 15, you are multiplying by 5. That means you will need to multiply that 13 by 5. That's going to give you 65 on the top. Take away, on this side, you will be multiplying by 3. So you need to multiply the 8 by 3 as well, which means it's 24 on the top of that fraction. So what we're then left with is 65, take away 24, which is 41 over 15. Now there is nothing that divides into 41 or 15, they don't have anything in common. You could, and I'm going to write the word here, or you could change that. It is okay to leave that 41 over 15, or you can say how many lots of 15 are there in 41. Now if you know that 2 times 15 is 30, you will see that that would leave you with 11 left over, so you could say that your answer would be 2 and 11/15. And that would be it. So that last step of changing from a top-heavy fraction into a mixed number is good practice. It's not always essential, but this one here does need to be in its simplest form. So now it's time for you to practice the exercise.